my name is Mallory Morales, and I'll be presenting on the Grimke sisters. So, considering what factors and economic, social, and political influence and contributed to the Grimke sisters' life, the two early and noticeable activists for slavery and ladies' freedom, Sarah Grimke and Angelina Grimke Weld, were brought up in the support of slavery on a ranch in South Carolina. The sisters, as they were known, developed to loathe slavery in the wake of seeing its unfeeling impact at a youthful age. Their father was a notable lawyer who turned into the main judge of the Supreme Court of South Carolina. Sarah later reviewed that her dad, the well-off Judge Fouchard Grimke, held his 14 youngsters to the best expectations of discipline at a time and expected them to work in the field shelling corn or picking cotton. She observed, "Perhaps I am indebted partially to this for my lifelong detestation of slavery, as it brought me in close contact with these unpaid toilers." At the age of 12 to 13, Sarah became godmother to her baby sister Angelina, promising to guide and direct this precious child. It is like as if it foreshadowed the lifelong bond between the sisters with one another and strengthened Sarah's determination to fight for social injustice. Sarah loved learning and studying, hoping to attend college and practice law like her brother, but her father forbade her from continuing her studies. In Sarah's mid-20s also, she traveled with her father, who became seriously ill later on, to Philadelphia to be treated by a doctor. Staying at a Quaker boarding school. Quakers are people that value all people equally. So yeah. But when treatment was failing, she took care of him by himself in New Jersey seashore until his death. After her father died, she returned to Charleston, where her feelings of opposition to slavery were quickly renewed. Then decided to move back to Philadelphia and convert to Quakerism. Quakerism is something of God and everybody, and that each human being is of unique worth. A few years later, Angelina also became a Quaker and decided to move north to be with Sarah. So, what attitudes were held by people living at the time? Sarah and Angeline Grimke lived in an era of religious revivalism and utopian experimentalism, both of which had an impact in various times on their lives. Religious revivalism is a term applied to mass movements which are based upon intense religious upheaval. During the late 1700s and 1800s, some people were really heavy in believing and siding with slavery and the inequality for women. But at the same time, there were people willing to go against it, like the Grimke sisters. The abolitionist and women's rights movement promoted the expansion of the American promise of liberty and equality. Explore any contradictions or complexities that may make this person someone who we can both make admire or revival. So, in addition to denouncing slavery, the sisters denounced race prejudice. Further, they argue that white women had a natural bond with female black slaves. These last two ideas were extreme even for radical abolitionists. The role of Grimke sisters played as an actor in history. In 1836, Angelina wrote her appeal to the Christian women of the South, imploring white Southern women to embrace the anti-slavery cause. Her writing drew the ire of Southerners who opposed its abolitionist message and Northerners who felt that women had no business writing or speaking about something as controversial as slavery. She wrote, "I know you do not make the laws, but I also know that you are the wives and mothers, the sisters and daughters of those who do, and if you really suppose you can do nothing to overthrow slavery, you are greatly mistaken." This outcry over women abolitionists prompted Sarah to write letters of the equality of the sexes. By the late 1830s, the Grimke sisters were not only known as abolitionists, but also as proponents of women's rights. In 1838, Angelina testified at committee of the legislature of the state of Massachusetts, becoming the first American woman to testify in a legislative meeting. Angelina, in the summer of 1837, published letters to Catherine Beecher defending immediate emancipation of slaves, as well as the right of responsibility of women to participate as citizens in their society. During this same time period, Sarah also began writing letters on the equality of sexes. Then the Grimke sisters are remembered today, and why it matters that students study them today is because Sarah Grimke and Angelina Grimke Wilde, sisters from a South Carolina slaveholding family, were active abolitionists, public speakers, and pioneer women's rights advocates. In a time where American women rarely occupied the public stage, their personal stories about the horrors of slavery made them effective agents in the Northern abolitionist movement, and their subsequent marginalization in the leadership of the movement spurred them towards an articulation of women's rights and duties in the public arena. Both women connected the oppression of African Americans with the oppression of women. This concludes my presentation.